I'm Maggie Harper, 82 years old, and after a long life, I've learned many things. But there's one decision I regret most: moving into Pineview Nursing Home in Charlotte. At the time, it seemed like the right choice. My kids, Ellen and Daniel, encouraged it after I had a minor fall at home in Asheville, North Carolina. They promised I'd be well cared for, comfortable, and I trusted them. But when I got here, I realized reality wasn't what I'd imagined. I know many people are considering nursing homes for themselves or loved ones, thinking it's the safest or easiest option. But before you decide, I want to share 6 truths I wish someone had warned me about. Because life here isn't just about convenience, it changes everything. And once you're in, leaving isn't as simple as you think. Watch this video to the end, because these lessons might help you avoid the mistake I made. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The day I decided to leave Asheville for Pineview, I truly believed I was stepping into a more pleasant chapter. Ellen had shown me the nursing home's brochure, bright photos of seniors smiling radiantly, holding coffee cups in a fancy dining room, or chatting under trees in a lush garden. "Mom, you'll have everything you need," Ellen said, her voice confident. Daniel nodded over FaceTime from Seattle, saying I wouldn't have to worry about falling anymore, that there'd be 24/7 care. I pictured myself resting after years of hard work. No more cooking, cleaning or tending to the rose garden at home. I even thought I might make new friends, like in those TV ads I'd seen for months. Seniors playing bingo, laughing cheerfully. Pineview promised a comfortable, safe life, and I believed that promise. On moving day, I brought a small suitcase with a few clothes, my favorite book, To Kill a Mockingbird, and a family photo from Myrtle Beach, taken 20 years ago. Ellen drove me from Asheville to Charlotte, about 2 hours. On the way, I told myself this was just a trial. If I didn't like it, I could always go home. When the car stopped in front of Pineview, I saw a modern building with big glass doors and a sign that read, "Welcome to Pineview. A home of care." I smiled, thinking I'd made the right choice. Ellen hugged me, said she'd be back by the weekend, and I walked in with a mix of nerves and hope. But as soon as the automatic doors closed behind me, I sensed something was off. The air didn't feel like home. It smelled of disinfectant, more like a hospital than the cozy house in the brochure. The first person I met was Nurse Clara, a middle-aged woman with a quick smile but tired eyes. "Welcome, Mrs. Harper. I'll take you to your room," she said, her voice flat, like she'd said it hundreds of times. I followed her down a long hallway, rubber shoes squeaking on the shiny floor. A few residents sat in the common room, an old man staring at a TV blaring an insurance ad, another woman dozing in an armchair, mouth slightly open. No one talked. No one laughed like in the pictures. My room was at the end of the hall, much smaller than my bedroom in Asheville. A single bed with stiff white sheets, a small table, and a window overlooking a parking lot, instead of the rose garden I loved. I set my suitcase down, sat on the bed, and heard the intercom crackle. "Lunch starts at noon. Please be on time," Nurse Clara explained briefly. "You'll get used to it. Call if you need anything." Then she left, leaving me in an unfamiliar space. I opened my book but couldn't read a word. The intercom sounded again, reminding us of med time. I looked around. No kitchenette to make tea. No familiar armchair. No Smokey, the cat who used to curl up with me every night. That's when I realized the first thing: this wasn't my home. What I'd imagined, comfort, gentle freedom, vanished quickly. I'd hoped Pineview would be a place to rest, but within hours, I felt like a guest in a strange place. And that was just the beginning. What I experienced next was far harsher. 6 truths I'll tell you about now, so you don't make the same mistake I did. The first truth, and maybe the biggest shock, is that I lost my independence, something I'd once taken for granted. In Asheville, every day was mine. I woke up at 7, brewed a cup of Earl Grey tea, sat in my armchair by the window overlooking my rose garden, listening to NPR talk about the world out there. I decided when to eat breakfast, maybe toast with homemade orange marmalade, and if I wanted, I'd walk around the park near my house, letting the cool breeze run through my hair. If it rained, I'd sit and read or write letters to old friends. Smokey, my cat, would curl up beside me, purring softly. That was my rhythm, slow, but mine. But at Pineview, everything changed from day one. The morning after I moved in, I woke at 6:30 to the intercom. Breakfast starts at 7:30. Please be in the dining room. I wasn't hungry, but I had no choice. I shuffled down the hall, still in my nightgown, because I hadn't had time to change. At home, I always put on a neat dress before starting the day. The dining room was crowded, the smell of boiled eggs and weak coffee filling the air. I sat at an assigned table, across from a silent old man, with trembling hands holding a spoon. Nurse Clara set a plastic tray in front of me. Bland eggs, a dry slice of bread, and a cup of boxed orange juice. Eat up, Mrs. Harper, she said, then hurried off. I stared at the tray, thinking of my marmalade back home, and felt my stomach hollow, in a way that had nothing to do with hunger. After breakfast, I wanted to step outside for fresh air, something I'd do in Asheville, to start the day. I asked Nurse Clara, can I go to the yard? She looked at me, gave a tight smile. Sure, but you'll need to wait for me, or someone free to go with you. I nodded, thinking it'd just be a few minutes. But 40 minutes passed, me sitting on a plastic chair in the hall, watching the wall clock tick, while Clara bustled with other residents. Finally, a young staff member, I heard someone call him Jake, showed up. Let's go, Mrs. Harper, he said, his tone impatient. I stepped into the yard, but there was no breeze, no roses, just a bare patch with a few metal benches, and a chain-link fence around it. I stood there less than 10 minutes before Jake said, time's up, back inside. I wanted to argue, but seeing his expression, I followed quietly. Then I met Harold, another resident, once a farmer from Nebraska. He sat on a bench in the yard, pale blue eyes staring into the distance. I struck up a conversation, and he told me he used to wake at dawn to tend his cattle, watching the sun rise over wheat fields. He said, his voice low and sad. I have to ask permission to see the sky, and they don't even let me stay long. Harold pointed at the fence. At home I had the whole sky. Here I've got this cage. I nodded, feeling his words hit me. I'd had my own garden, my own freedom to step outside any time. Now, even a walk was a privilege I had to wait for. The day dragged on with a rhythm that wasn't mine. At noon the intercom blared, lunch at 12. I didn't get to choose the food. That day it was dry chicken and tasteless mashed potatoes. I missed my Asheville afternoons, making a tuna sandwich or cooking pumpkin soup from my garden. At night, lights out was at 9, even though I wasn't sleepy. I lay in bed, staring at the blank ceiling, thinking of Smokey, now with Ellen, and my armchair, surely gathering dust in Asheville. I wanted to read, but the dim bedside lamp strained my eyes. I set To Kill a Mockingbird down, realizing even this small hobby wasn't easy anymore. The hardest part was realizing I no longer controlled my time. Want to shower, wait for staff to be free. Want to change clothes, pick from the few plain outfits in the closet. No more floral dresses I loved. I remember the first week, asking Nurse Clara, can I make a cup of tea? She laughed. No kitchen here, Mrs. Harper. We'll bring tea if you want, but only at set times. I nodded, but inside I felt empty. My Earl Grey wasn't just a drink. It was a ritual, a freedom. Harold told me one day, as we sat in the common room, they take your time, and then you get used to not owning it anymore. He was right. I started to stop asking, stop resisting, but each time I gave in, I felt a piece of myself slip away. In Asheville, I was Maggie, the rose grower, the tea maker, the woman who lived her way. At Pineview, I was just Mrs. Harper, a name on a list, someone who had to ask permission for things that used to be basic rights. Sitting in my small room at Pineview, hearing the intercom call out meal times or Nurse Clara's shoes squeak on the floor, I'd often close my eyes and let my mind drift back to Asheville, where I truly lived. Those days weren't glamorous, but they were mine, and now I see how I took them for granted. I miss my little wooden house with the front porch, where I'd sit in the mornings, a steaming cup of Earl Grey in hand. Through the window, I'd see my rose garden, grown over 20 years, vibrant red blooms in summer, tended daily with pruning shears and homemade compost. Birds chirped in the nearby oak, blending with the warm NPR voices on my old radio, sharing news or some intriguing story. I shaped my day from those first moments. Some days I'd make toast with orange marmalade. Others I'd just sit and read, letting time pass slowly. I miss my walks around the park near home, just steps from my front door. I'd wear my old canvas shoes, strolling shaded paths, feeling the cool breeze in my hair, and smelling freshly cut grass in the air. Sometimes I'd stop at a wooden bench, watching kids play, or dogs romp with their owners. No one told me to go back. No one timed me. If I felt like it, I'd pop into Mr. Peterson's little grocery store, a few blocks away, picking up vegetables or a chocolate bar to savor that night. I cooked for myself, pumpkin soup from my garden, or a tuna sandwich with homemade mayo, and ate whenever I wanted. No schedule. Smokey was my constant companion. That gray cat would curl up on the armchair beside me every night, purring softly as I read To Kill a Mockingbird, or wrote letters to old friends, a habit from my teaching days. I miss the soft cotton feel of that armchair, how it hugged my back like a familiar embrace. The golden glow of my table lamp lit the pages, and outside, crickets sang in the summer night. Some nights I'd stay up late, just soaking in the quiet. No intercom, no schedule, no one knocking to say lights out. If I wanted tea at midnight, I'd step into the kitchen, flip on the kettle, and soon the scent of Earl Grey would fill the air. Those free days weren't just routines. They were how I defined myself. I was Maggie, the rose grower, the morning walker, the tea maker who lived to her own rhythm. I wasn't rich or famous, but I had control. From when I woke, what I ate, to how I spent each hour. In Asheville, I didn't need permission to step outside, didn't wait for a tray of food, didn't explain why I'd rather read than watch TV. That house, with its rose garden and armchair, wasn't just a place, it was where I belonged. Now at Pineview, I see how precious those small things were. Harold, the friend I met in the yard, once said, "They don't just take your time, they take who you are." Thinking of Asheville, I know he's right. I'm not the Maggie of those free days anymore. I'm Mrs. Harper, the one who waits, who follows, who's slowly forgetting what it's like to decide for herself. Remembering those days doesn't just make me sad. It reminds me what I've lost. And I want you to know that before you end up like me. Losing independence was hard, but the second truth hurts even more at Pineview. I started feeling forgotten. Back in Asheville, family was the heart of my life. Ellen, my oldest, lived in Boston, a lawyer, and called weekly to check in. Daniel, my youngest, was in Seattle, busy as a software engineer, but still texted photos of the grandkids. Before moving to Pineview, they convinced me it was the best solution. "You won't be lonely, Mom," Ellen said over the phone, her voice warm. "We'll visit often, and the staff will take care of you." Daniel added, "I'll bring the kids to see you. You'll love it." I believed them. Not just because of their promises, but because I'd always felt like a vital part of their lives. I thought a nursing home would only change where I lived, not our family bond. The first days at Pineview seemed to prove them right. Ellen drove down from Boston that first weekend, bringing carnations and a box of chocolate chip cookies I loved. We sat in the common room, laughing about her latest cases. Daniel FaceTimed from Seattle, letting the kids wave at me. Little Sophie even showed off a drawing she made for Grandma. I felt reassured, thinking I was still part of the family, even living at Pineview. But then things started to shift. So slowly, I didn't notice at first. After a few weeks, Ellen stopped coming. She called instead. "Mom, I'm swamped this week. Big case," she said, her voice apologetic. I nodded over the phone, told her I understood, that work mattered. Daniel too. The FaceTime calls dwindled, often just short texts. "How's Grandma?" Meetings all day. I told myself they loved me, that life was just busy. But as the first month passed, I started counting the days no one came. I'd sit in the common room, staring at the glass door, hoping to see Ellen walk in with flowers or Daniel with the kids, like he'd promised. But the door stayed shut. My first Thanksgiving at Pineview was when I felt that loneliness most sharply. In Asheville, it was a family affair. Ellen and Daniel came home, bringing laughter and the smell of roasted turkey. I'd imagine them visiting Pineview, sitting with me in the dining room, even if it was just the home's bland meal. Ellen promised she'd come. "I'll make it work. Don't worry, Mom." Daniel texted, "I'll try to bring the kids." But by Thanksgiving morning, my phone was silent. I wore my best red sweater, sat in the common room, from 10 a.m., watching the door. At noon, Ellen called, "Mom, I'm so sorry, the highway's jammed. I can't make it." Daniel texted later, "Kids have colds. Next time, Grandma." I nodded to myself, trying not to cry. But when dinner came, pureed turkey and cold potatoes, I just stared, unable to swallow. I wasn't the only one feeling it. At Pineview, I met Evelyn, a 79-year-old, with silver hair, tied neatly, and a habit of wearing floral dresses every Sunday. Evelyn once told me she had 3 kids in Raleigh, less than 2 hours drive from Charlotte. They promised they'd visit often, she said, her voice soft, but her eyes sad. Every Sunday, she'd sit in the common room, dress pressed, holding an old photo album, waiting for the door to open. But I rarely saw anyone come. Once I asked, "Are your kids coming today?" Evelyn gave a faint smile. "Probably busy. Life, you know." But I saw her hands tremble as she flipped through the pages, like she was clinging to something long gone. The loneliness at Pineview isn't because my family or Evelyn stopped loving us. Ellen still calls, though less often. Daniel still texts, though briefly. But when you're not in their daily lives anymore, you fade into the distance. They think I'm fine, that I'm cared for, that I don't need them as much. But the truth is, I need them more than ever. Not to bring food or push a wheelchair, but to remind me I still matter. Once I picked up the phone, wanting to call Ellen, to say, "I miss you, please come." But I put it down. I didn't want to be a burden, didn't want to beg for love from my own kids. Harold, the friend I mentioned earlier, once said as we sat in the yard, "Here you learn to wait for things that never come." I started to understand him. As days at Pineview passed, I became like Evelyn, sitting staring at the door, hoping today would be different, but it usually wasn't. I missed the evenings in Asheville, when Ellen would call just to vent about a bad day in court, or Daniel would send photos of the kids at the park. Now, I just have the TV blaring in the common room, and the sighs of other residents, also waiting for someone to remember them. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to feel forgotten? Because no matter how much your family loves you, when you're out of sight, you're more out of mind than you'd think. And that's just the second truth. There's more I want you to know, so you don't end up with the loneliness I'm enduring. When you lose your independence and feel forgotten, the next thing to slip away is your sense of purpose. That's the third truth I realized at Pineview. In Asheville, every day had meaning, even if it was small. I wasn't changing the world, but I had things to do, routines that kept me connected to myself. I woke up to tend my rose garden, pruning branches, watering, watching them bloom in the morning sun. I brewed Earl Grey tea, sat reading, or wrote letters to old friends from my teaching days. Some days I'd sew, mending a worn sweater, or making a new table runner from scrap fabric. Those tasks weren't grand, but they gave me a reason to get out of bed, to feel useful. I was Maggie, the flower grower, the storyteller to Smokey, the keeper of my little home, tidy and warm. When I moved to Pineview, I thought I'd just change where I lived, not how I lived. I brought To Kill a Mockingbird and some sewing needles, hoping to keep a bit of my old routine. But within the first week, I saw everything was different. No rose garden to tend. Pineview's yard had only a few scraggly bushes, no one bothered with. No kitchen to make tea. Nurse Clara said I'd have to wait for the communal tea time, usually weak stuff from a machine. I tried bringing my sewing to the common room, but the dim light and loud TV made it impossible to focus. My favorite book sat untouched on the table, because I couldn't muster the mood to read, when every day felt the same. Days at Pineview dragged on, empty in a way that made me lose track of time. Mornings I ate the meal, brought to me, no cooking, no choosing. Noon I sat in the common room, watching other residents, some dozing, some staring at the TV playing pointless insurance ads. Afternoons, I'd go back to my room, lie on the bed, listening to the intercom announce bedtime or dinner. Nothing to do, nothing to look forward to. I'd thought resting would be nice, that not worrying about cooking or cleaning would be a relief. But after a few weeks, I realized when you lose responsibilities, you lose meaning too. I wasn't someone doing something anymore. I was just someone waiting, letting time pass. I wasn't alone in feeling this. One day, I met Leonard in the common room. He was 84, a WWI pilot from Oregon, with hands that once flew planes through smoky skies. Leonard told me about his days at home. He had a small workshop in his garage, fixing bikes for neighborhood kids, or making wooden stools to sell at flea markets. I was never still, he said, his voice raspy but proud. Always something to fix, to build. But at Pineview, no workshop, no tools, no projects. I'd see him in an armchair, hands clasped, eyes on the floor. Once he pointed to his hands, now trembling from disuse, and whispered, "I feel useless, Maggie, like I'm not me anymore." I understood Leonard because I was starting to feel it too. In Asheville, I had reasons to get up, watering flowers or writing a short letter. Here I just waited, for meals, for staff, for lights out. I remember asking Nurse Clara once, "Is there anything for us to do, like painting or something?" She smiled, "There's bingo every Wednesday. Give it a try." I went, but sitting in a stuffy room, listening to numbers being called, didn't help. It wasn't my choice, wasn't what I loved, just a way to kill time. The worst part is when you lose purpose. Your mind and body slow down too. I saw it in Leonard. He used to tell pilot stories with energy, but now he spoke less. Sat longer, like his spark was fading. Me too. I started forgetting dates, forgetting what I even liked. One day I looked at the plastic plant on my table, the closest thing to nature in my room, and thought, I used to have a whole garden. Now it's just this. I wanted to do something, anything, to feel alive. But at Pineview, everything's done for you. Meals, cleaning, schedules, and the cost is, you lose your reason to keep going yourself. Leonard said to me once, as we sat by the window watching rain, "They don't let you do anything, then you forget you ever could." I nodded, his words cutting like a knife. In Asheville I had tasks, hobbies, a meaningful life. At Pineview, I was just another resident, sitting waiting, days blurring together. I saw others around me, former seamstresses, teachers, farmers, now just quiet shadows, losing themselves bit by bit. If you're thinking about a nursing home, ask yourself, what gives you purpose? Small like watering plants, or big like working? Because keeping it here isn't as easy as you think. You have to fight not to become a shell of yourself. And I wish I'd known that before Pineview. But the story's not over. There are 3 more truths I want you to hear, so you understand everything I've been through. Lying on the stiff bed at Pineview, hearing the intercom drone daily, I'd often close my eyes and let my mind drift to Asheville, where small things were everything to me. There, each day wasn't just surviving, it was truly living, thanks to the simple routines I made for myself. I missed the rose garden, not a big one, just a little patch by the house, but it was my joy. I'd wake early, pull on old cloth gloves, grab pruning shears, feel damp soil under my hands as I weeded. The scent of roses floated in the breeze, sweet and alive, reminding me I was nurturing something as living as me. Some days I'd sit for hours, just watching a bud unfold, and that feeling, small but real, made me happy. Then there were mornings brewing, Earl Grey in my little kitchen. I'd turn on the kettle, hear it hum, pour hot water into a chipped white mug I'd used since my teaching days. I'd stand by the window, looking at the garden, sipping warm tea, letting its rich taste wake me up. Smokey would weave around my feet, meowing for food, and I'd laugh, grabbing some dried fish from the pantry for him. I'd settle into my armchair, its soft cotton cradling my back, turn on the radio for NPR, a story about culture or science, just enough to keep me tied to the world. I miss the afternoons sewing, or writing letters too. I'd pull out needle and fabric, mend a sweater frayed at the cuffs, or cut a floral scrap to make a handkerchief for Ellen at Christmas. Some days I'd sit at the kitchen table, writing to old friends, like Ruth in Ohio, who taught with me. I'd tell her about the garden, smoking my quiet days, and folding the letter. I felt I still mattered, still connected through each handwritten word. Evenings, I'd read To Kill a Mockingbird, under the soft gold of my table lamp, letting the story carry me, while crickets sang with the night breeze outside. Those things weren't big, not achievements to brag about, but they were my purpose, how I kept my mind and heart alive. I was Maggie, the flower grower, the tea maker, the letter writer, and each small task gave me a reason to start the day. In Asheville, no one told me what to do. No one brought me trays or turned on lights for me. I decided, I cared for myself, and through that I felt I existed, not just as a name or a shadow. Now at Pineview, thinking of those days, I see how precious they were. Leonard was right. When they don't let you do anything, you forget you ever could. In Asheville, I had my own little world, built from simple things. Here I've got nothing to tend, nothing to create. I miss the smell of roses, the kettle's hum, the feel of a needle in my hand, things that define me. Remembering doesn't just make me sad, it reminds me I lost something huge in those small acts, and I wish I'd cherished them more before coming here. When you lose independence, family drifts away, and purpose fades. The next thing taken is your health. That's the fourth truth I faced at Pineview, and it hit faster than I could prepare for. In Asheville I wasn't the fittest, but I was proud of my body at 82. I'd had that minor fall before moving, but it was just once. I got up, dusted off, and went on with my day. I walked around the park near home, striding steady on paths under oak trees, breathing fresh air into my lungs. I gardened, bending to weed the rose beds, trimming branches with shears, standing back up without a handhold. I cooked, stirring pumpkin soup on the stove, carrying bags of veggies from Mr. Peterson's store. Not heavy, but enough to keep my arms nimble. I thought I'd hold on to that health forever, maybe slowing a bit, but still enough to live the life I wanted. But at Pineview, I didn't expect my body to weaken so fast. The first day, I still walked fine, from my room to the dining hall, though just a few steps. I thought I'd keep moving, even without the park or garden. Nurse Clara said, "Relax, we'll handle everything." I smiled, thinking rest would help me recover from the Asheville fall. But after a few days, I felt a shift. I wasn't walking far anymore. The hall was short, and going to the yard meant asking, often cut short because staff were busy. I didn't do anything heavy. No carrying, no bending, no cooking. Everything was brought, meal trays, water cups, even slippers if I dropped them. I sat more, on plastic chairs in the common room, on my bed, and slowly, I felt my body start to betray me. Just a month in, I noticed my legs weren't the same. In Asheville, I'd rise from my armchair like it was nothing, but at Pineview, I had to grip the dining table, my knees trembling each time I stood. One morning, I tried walking from my room to the end of the hall, less than 20 meters, but had to stop halfway, leaning against the wall, panting. My heart raced, not from strength, but from weakness. I looked down at legs that once strode steadily on park paths, now shaking like they might give out. I asked Nurse Clara, "Why am I so weak?" She shrugged. "It's just age, Mrs. Harper. Rest." But I knew better. I'd been stronger, and I was losing it, because I had no chance to use it. I saw it in others too. One day, I chatted with Ruth, 81, arrived at Pineview, around the same time as me. Ruth used to live in Denver, jogging around a park every morning. Even in her later years, she walked into Pineview with a steady gait, her laugh ringing as she told me about running in the morning sun, breath sinking with birdsong. "I always kept my body moving," she said, eyes bright with pride. But after a few weeks, I saw Ruth slow down. She stopped walking the yard. "Waiting for staff takes too long. I gave up," she told me. Then one day, I saw her with a cane, steps faltering. "My legs don't listen anymore," she said, voice low. Within 3 months, I found her in the dining room, in a wheelchair, hands once strong, now resting limp. "I don't know when it happened," she whispered, "but I feel 10 years older." I started to see why we weaken so fast. At Pineview, everything's too easy. You don't walk far. Don't do anything yourself. Trays are brought to your table. Staff push wheelchairs if you're tired. A call button replaces getting up. I remember hearing on NPR in Asheville a speculative 2025 CDC report saying inactive seniors lose muscle 3 times faster than natural aging. At home, I kept my body alive, walking, gardening, managing everything. Here, I stopped moving, and my body paid the price. Ruth went from jogging daily to a wheelchair. I went from gardening to struggling, to stand without a chair for support. I tried to change it once. I told Nurse Clara, I want to walk more, at least in the hall. She nodded. Sure, but be careful. I tried, pacing slowly down the hall, but the stuffy air and disinfectant smell got to me. I managed a few days, but there was no purpose, no park, no roses, just white walls and the intercom. I gave up, went back to bed, and felt myself weaken more each day. Leonard once told me in the common room, they make everything easy for you, then you lose the ability to do it yourself. I saw he was right. I wasn't just losing health, I was losing the will to keep it. If I'd known my body would decline this fast, I'd have stayed in Asheville, fought to walk daily, kept my legs strong. But at Pine View, when everything's done for you, you don't realize what you're losing until there's nothing left to reclaim. Coming to Pine View, I lost independence. Family drifted away, purpose vanished, and health faded. But the fifth truth cut even deeper. I lost privacy and dignity, things that once defined me. In Asheville, I had my own space. A small wooden house where I could shut my bedroom door any time. I changed clothes in peace, bathed when I wanted, sat alone in my armchair, with Earl Grey tea, no one watching or judging. I decided who entered. Ellen and Daniel had to knock. Friends had to call first. It was my territory, where I was Maggie, in control of my life, not anyone else. I didn't think much of it until it was gone. My first day at Pine View, I felt the difference right away. My room was small, no lock. Nurse Claire explained, for safety, we need access anytime. I nodded, thinking I'd adjust, but then I realized privacy wasn't a right anymore. It was something I had to beg for. One morning, I was changing, slowly, because my hands were weaker, when Nurse Clara barged in without knocking, holding a med tray. How's your morning? She asked, as if she didn't see me half into my sweater. She yanked it down, face burning, stammering, I'm not done. She laughed. It's fine. I'm used to it. But I wasn't. I felt exposed, not just physically, but because the dignity I'd had was now irrelevant. Bathing was the same. In Asheville, I showered in my little bathroom, warm water running over my shoulders, lavender soap relaxing me. At Pine View I waited for staff, usually Jake, the rushed young guy, to take me to a shared bathroom. Want a shower today? He'd ask, voice flat. I'd nod, but inside, he'd stand just outside the curtain, telling me to hurry because others were waiting. Once, I slipped slightly, and Jake yanked the curtain back, steadying me. Careful, he said. No malice, but I wanted to disappear. I used to do it all myself. Now I needed help for the basics, and the shame made me feel less like me. Then I had to share a room. Not everyone at Pine View gets their own. I was paired with Dorothy, a 78-year-old from Raleigh. Dorothy wasn't bad, but she blasted her radio all night, humming old tunes I couldn't stand. I asked Nurse Clara, can I switch rooms? She shook her head. No space. You'll manage. I wanted my own space, like in Asheville, where I could shut the door and have quiet. But here, I heard Dorothy snore, the radio blare, and there was no escape. One night, I woke to her spilling water, and Jake came in to clean. No knock, just flipped on the light, startling me. Go back to sleep, he said, but I lay there, feeling like part of the mess, with no control. I saw it in others too. One day I talked with Evelyn, the one I mentioned earlier, who wore floral dresses on Sundays. Evelyn used to live alone in Raleigh, in a small apartment with a bedroom where she kept family mementos, photos of her kids, letters from her late husband. At Pine View she shared a room, and I saw her deflate as she told me, they come in to check while I'm looking at photos. No knock. I don't want them seeing me cry. Evelyn was once proud, but now she felt like a patient, not the independent woman with her own space. I got it. When staff burst in unannounced, When you can't do basic things alone, you lose the dignity that defined you. In 2025 America, places like Pineview cut costs, fewer staff, like Nurse Clara or Jake, always busy, leading to less personal care. They do their job, but the cost is, we lose our sense of humanity. I remember asking Jake, "Can I pick my shower time?" He laughed. "Schedule's full, stick to this slot." I used to choose everything, when to eat, bathe, sleep. Now I'm Mrs. Harper, a name on a list, talked to like a child, instead of the adult who ran her own life. The hardest part is I didn't expect dignity to slip away so easily. In Asheville, I was Maggie, tea maker, rose grower, door closer when I wanted peace. At Pineview, I'm a resident to manage, no one waiting for my okay before entering, no one asking what I want. I started getting used to it, not complaining when Dorothy played her radio, not asking when Jake brought trays I didn't like. But each time I adjusted, I felt more like a stranger. Harold once told me in the yard, "They take your time, then your whole self." He was right. I'm not the Maggie I knew anymore. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to give up privacy and dignity, the things that make you you? Because once they're gone, they're harder to reclaim than you think. I wish I'd known that before Pineview, and I hope you don't learn it like I did. There's one final truth. Keep listening to hear it all. Sitting in my cramped room at Pineview, hearing Dorothy's radio drone, or Jake's footsteps echo suddenly, I'd often close my eyes and let my mind drift to Asheville, where I had privacy, where I was truly me. That little wooden house wasn't grand, but it was mine, every corner marked by me. I miss my bedroom, the oak door I'd shut each night, the latch clicking softly, like a reminder I was safe. Inside my bed with a quilt I'd sewn, lavender scent wafting from a sachet under my pillow. The window overlooked my rose garden, where I'd watch red buds bloom under moonlight, undisturbed. I miss my small bathroom, old white tiles but clean, where I'd shower under warm water, steam easing my tired shoulders. I picked my soap, adjusted the flow, no one outside the curtain rushing me. In the kitchen, I'd brew Earl Grey, standing by the sink, gazing at the garden, letting the tea's scent mingle with morning air. Smokey would weave around my legs, meowing for food, and I'd laugh, grabbing dried fish for him. I'd sink into my armchair, its soft cotton hugging my back, reading To Kill a Mockingbird under the table lamp's gentle gold. No one flipping lights on or off for me, no one entering without a knock. That space was where I kept my dignity. I changed in peace, picking floral dresses I loved, no one catching me mid-dress. I decided who came in, Ellen knocked, Daniel called ahead. It was where I was Maggie, flower grower, tea maker, living how I chose. In Asheville, I didn't need permission to bathe, didn't endure strange radios, didn't explain when I wanted quiet. The house was my domain, where I had rights, where I felt worthy. Now at Pineview, thinking of those days, I see how precious they were. Evelyn once told me, recalling her Raleigh apartment, private space is where you hold on to yourself. She was right. In Asheville, I had a door to close, silence to breathe in, control to decide. Here, I've lost it all. No door, no peace, no dignity. Remembering doesn't just make me miss it. It hurts. I had a home once, and I didn't know how much I'd lose it until Pineview. Coming to Pineview, I lost independence, family, purpose, health, and dignity. But the sixth truth, the final one, made me realize there's no going back. Leaving is far harder than I ever imagined. When I agreed to move from Asheville here, I told myself it was temporary. Ellen and Daniel convinced me after my minor fall, and I thought, I'll try a few months. If I don't like it, I'll go home. My little wooden house in Asheville, with its rose garden, armchair, and Smokey, was still where I pictured returning. I brought a small suitcase, To Kill a Mockingbird, and the belief I could change my mind any time. But I was wrong. Once you enter Pineview, the way out isn't as simple as you think. After a few months, I felt suffocated. The morning intercom, bland meal trays, Dorothy's radio, and Nurse Clara's hurried glances made me miss Asheville like crazy. I called Ellen one night, voice shaking. I want to go home. Pineview isn't for me. She paused, then said, Mom, I'm worried about you. The old house isn't the same anymore. I asked what she meant, and Ellen hesitated. I've rented it out. You can't manage alone. And Pineview costs too much. $9,000 a month. Selling stuff and renting was the only way. I was stunned. My house, with its garden and Smokey's memories, now belonged to strangers. I had nowhere to go back to. I called Daniel, hoping he'd back me up. Daniel, I want to return to Asheville. Can you help me? He sighed over the phone from Seattle. Grandma, I'd love to, but you're not as strong as before. Your legs are weak. What if you fall? Pineview's safer, I argued. I was strong. I only got weak here. But Daniel cut in. I'm swamped. The kids need me. Pineview's best for you now. I hung up, hands trembling, realizing my kids didn't want me back. Not because they didn't love me, but because they feared the responsibility, feared another fall, feared they couldn't cope. My declining health made it even harder. In Asheville, I walked, gardened, stood up easily. After 6 months at Pineview, I needed the table to stand, legs shaking after a few steps. I'd thought I could live alone again, but now I doubted myself. One day, I looked into a small apartment in Charlotte, near Pineview, for easier visits, but rent plus care costs were beyond me. I drained my savings on $9,000 monthly here, and the Asheville house was gone. I felt trapped. No health, no money, no confidence to leave. I wasn't alone. Walter, a resident I met in the dining room, thought Pineview was temporary too. He was 83, from Savannah, a mechanic with calloused hands. Walter said he moved in, after losing his wife, planning to stay a few months, then go back. But my son sold the house to cover costs. He said, voice heavy, I want out, to rent a little place, but my legs won't hold, and the money's gone. Once Walter tried leaving, packed his bags, called his son, but the son refused, saying, you're better off there, Dad. Walter sank back into his chair, eyes dimming, and I saw him give up. He told me, the longer you stay, the harder it gets to leave. Maggie. I started to grasp that bitter truth. Pineview isn't just a place, it becomes your whole world. My Asheville home is a distant memory now. The rose garden likely withered, armchair dusty, smoky with Ellen. I thought I could return, but weak health, no funds, and family reluctance built an invisible wall. I recall talking with Harold, in the yard, him saying, take your time, then your whole life. He was right. I've no choice but to stay, even if I don't want to. In 2025 America, nursing homes like Pineview drain finances. $9,000 a month isn't rare. And when your house is sold, when kids are busy in Boston or Seattle, you lose your exit. I wish I'd known this before. I'd have fought to stay in Asheville, found in-home care, kept my house. But it's too late now. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready for the chance you can't leave? Because once you're in, the barriers, financial, physical, emotional, are bigger than you think. This is my final truth, and I hope you hear it all to avoid the path I took. When I look back on my journey from Asheville to Pineview, losing independence, family drifting away, purpose, health, dignity, and even an escape, I realize my story isn't just personal. It's part of the elder care system in 2025 America. And the sixth truth, how hard it is to leave, made me think deeper about this. At Pineview, I'm not just Maggie anymore. I'm one of millions of seniors caught in a system I didn't foresee. I once thought a nursing home was a safe solution, as Ellen and Daniel said, but now I see it's a cycle that's tough to break, reflecting how American society treats its elderly today. Cost is the first barrier. Pineview charges $9,000 a month, not uncommon in 2025 America, with healthcare prices soaring. I drained my savings, and Ellen had to rent out my Asheville house to cover it. From what I'd heard on NPR before, millions of American families face the same choice: sell the house, use up assets, or leave loved ones in nursing homes forever. Walter, who I mentioned earlier, lost his Savannah home for this reason too. The system offers no way out. When your finances run dry, you've got no choice but to stay, no matter how much you want to go home. Then there's family distance. Ellen in Boston, Daniel in Seattle, they're busy with jobs, kids, their own lives. In America today, kids often live far from parents, sometimes thousands of miles away, like me and mine. When I entered Pineview, They figured I was cared for, so their burden eased. But as I said about Thanksgiving, that distance left me forgotten. The nursing home system leans on this. It becomes a solutions for the elderly, letting kids keep their busy lives without daily worry. Evelyn, with her 3 kids in Raleigh, felt it too. They don't visit, assuming she's fine. American culture plays a role too. We prize productivity, self-reliance. Leonard, the pilot from Oregon, once said he felt useless without something to do. Me too. Losing my rose garden and Earl Grey tea took my reason to live. At Pineview, there's no room for purpose. You're cared for, but not living. Ruth, the runner from Denver, weakened without movement, and so did I, because the system doesn't encourage keeping health or meaning. It turns you passive, waiting, and when you weaken, like me or Walter, you're even less able to leave. But I believe there's another way. In Asheville, I'd heard of senior communities, living at home with visiting nurses or neighbor help. If I'd known sooner, I'd have found in-home care, kept my little wooden house, instead of letting Ellen rent it out. The U.S. government in 2025 could do more, boost funding for home care, cut nursing home costs, so people like me aren't trapped. I wish I'd fought for that, instead of trusting Pineview's glossy brochure. My story isn't just a warning, it's a call to action. This system isn't fate, we can change it. If you're watching, think about your loved ones, or yourself later. Don't let $9,000 a month, or family distance push you into a cycle like mine. Find ways to keep them home, keep them active like I was with my garden, keep them themselves. I can't return to Asheville, but you can choose differently, and that's what I want you to take from my story. After realizing I'm stuck at Pineview, no more Asheville, no way out, I asked myself what I could do to not lose myself entirely. I've told you about the elder care system in 2025 America that pulled me into this cycle, but I don't want to just be a victim. I once had my rose garden, Earl Grey tea, and Smoky, small things that gave me meaning. Here, I can't get them back, but I decided to try one small act to feel alive, even just a bit. I didn't want to become an empty shell like Leonard said, or give up like Walter. One day, I saw a plastic plant on the dining room table. Ugly, but it reminded me of my Asheville garden. I asked Nurse Clara, can I grow a real plant? She was surprised but nodded. Sure, if you want, I'll find something. A few days later, she brought a small pot with lavender. Not roses, but its gentle scent reminded me of home. I set it by my room's window, though it only overlooks the parking lot. Each morning, I water it with a cup from my meal tray, watching its green leaves, feeling like I'm tending something again, like before. Dorothy complained, it takes up space, but I smiled, bear with it, Edness, and she went quiet. I tried something else too. I told Nurse Clara, I want to host a little resident meetup, just to talk. She shrugged. If you can manage it, I won't stop you.
Sure is.
I invited Harold, Evelyn, and a few others to the common room one afternoon. We shared old stories, Harold about Nebraska wheat fields, Evelyn showing Raleigh kid photos. I talked about Smoky and my garden.
No one laughed loud.
But I saw their eyes light up, and I felt I wasn't just Mrs. Harper.
All was Maggie again.
Connecting people. These small acts don't change Pineview.
Yen.
I'm still weak, still hear Dorothy's radio, still can't return to Asheville.
Would they give me a bit of meaning, a bit of dignity?
I thought I'd lost. I learned that even in harsh circumstances, you can find a tiny light. If I can do it here, you can too.
For yourself, or a loved one, before they fall into a cycle like mine.
Looking back from Asheville to Pineview, I don't regret aging, that's natural. But I regret believing a nursing home was my only way out. I came here hoping for safety and comfort, like Ellen and Daniel promised, but I lost independence when I had to ask to go to the yard.
Lost family, as they faded to sparse calls. Lost purpose without my rose garden to tend.
Lost health as my legs weakened. Lost dignity when my room had no lock. And lost escape when my house was rented out.
Pineview isn't all bad. Some need the care it offers. But I wish I'd known the real cost before coming.
If I could do it over, I'd have stayed in Asheville, found in-home help, to keep my little wooden house, garden and Smoky with me. I'd have kept walking daily, even slowly, to keep my legs strong like Ruth ran in Denver. I'd have told Ellen and Daniel, help me stay home. Don't put me in Pineview, instead of letting them decide for me. I want you to learn from my mistake, if you're considering a nursing home for yourself or a loved one.
Pause and ask, is this really best, or just easiest right now?
Don't let glossy brochures or safety's promises hide the truth. Find ways to keep them home, with family, with purpose, with dignity, as long as possible. Your life today, whether it's a cup of Earl Grey, a walk, or a door you close yourself, is worth holding on to. I can't go back, but you can choose differently. If this story hits you, share it with your kids, your friends, so they understand and act before it's too late. I grow lavender at Pineview to find some light, but I hope you don't wait until you've lost everything to do the same. Thanks for listening to me, Maggie Harper, who once had a garden, and now wants you to keep yours. Maggie Harper's story reflects the challenges seniors in the U.S. face today, amid rising care costs and scattered families. Maggie lost her Asheville home when Ellen rented it to cover Pineview's $9,000 monthly fee, a familiar figure in 2025 America's healthcare system, where nursing homes often become the default as kids like Ellen Boston and Daniel Seattle live far and busy. She lost independence begging Nurse Clara to go outside, purpose without her rose garden or Earl Grey tea, and health when walking stopped, like Ruth, from Denver runner to wheelchair. Loneliness on Thanksgiving waiting for kids who didn't come, or dignity vanishing as Jake walked in while she dressed. Show nursing homes don't just take freedom but identity. American culture prizing productivity left Leonard Oregon pilot feeling useless, a common reality when seniors are cut from familiar lives. The lesson: don't rush to nursing homes for convenience. Consider in-home support, like Maggie wishes she'd done in Asheville, to keep the garden smoky and freedom. Families must prioritize visits. Don't let Ellen's promises stay empty words. Plan early. Keep body and mind active, like Maggie's lavender pot, and push for better 2025 U.S. home care policies. Life's worth lies in small things. Don't let them slip away like Maggie did. If you found value in my story, from the Rose Garden in Asheville to the lessons at Pineview, please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon with more truths to help you hold on to the little things that matter.